Hello and welcome to another video. It's Lily Paddock here, and today I am making a video that I've held off on making for quite a while. Part of me is still uncertain about whether I want to share this because I'm aware that it's just going to make everyone doubt my sanity even more. But I've been going through this all on my own, and I don't know what's going on, and I could really use help and support from other people to figure out what's happening and how any of this is possible, because, spoiler, but my life is impossible. It is... I will explain, and hopefully you'll see what I mean, and you'll see why I've held off on making this video for a long while, why I was worried about making it, and why I wasn't being entirely open with some of my past videos, because this has been going on for months. If you're wondering why I'm opening up now, this is largely because I had this conversation with a stranger the second stranger, I'm gonna have to start calling them like 1 and 2 or something, just so that it's, you know, which one I'm referring to, because I wouldn't be surprised if if there were more of them. So yeah, so I had a conversation with 2, and they pleaded me to keep talking about what I'm going through. It sounds as if that's kind of part of the task I've been allocated, really, is to be a voice for those who've gone through what I've been through in the past. So, and the present. The thing that really solidified this for me was the second 2 said to me that if I needed further instructions for the ARG, I should pray. And at the time, that didn't make huge amounts of sense, because that just sounded like, oh yeah, pray to the Lord and it'll all be fixed, or like they'll be good. You'll get all of these instructions and whatever. I didn't really understand it. And then one day I put 2 and 2 together and basically realised that it could be linked to my technology and this whole idea that I was told at the beginning about being placed in a bubble. So up until now, I have done a lot of videos focusing on the physical aspects of the ARG, the real worldy things that have happened since the ARG started, but I've very deliberately stayed away from the psychological side of things. One, because I was embarrassed, and, you know, going through what I've gone through, if you didn't doubt your sanity sometimes, that you would be superhuman, and I would credit a person for managing to get through without thinking that they've got a screw loose. But also because I felt it would reduce the believability of everything else that I was talking about. But in order to give a full picture of everything, I've got to talk about the fact that basically the algorithm kind of speaks to me. The moment that I entered the game, things seemed to go really weird where my technology was concerned. The first thing that happened was that my computer and my phone crashed within about an hour of each other. And once it was all back, I don't know why, but I felt like there had been a change in the algorithm on both of them. on any device, to be honest. I don't know whether it's all tech. No, it's not all tech. No, it can't be. It's just my laptop and my phone, I think. Sorry, I went into this in previous videos, so sorry to go over old ground, but the weird thing that I found with my content, you're talking my YouTube feed, my social media, my emails, all of them seem to just get strange. Like, I was finding that I was refreshing my feeds and I was, looking at my social media, and it was coming up with all sorts of like weird content that I'd never shown any preference for, like documentaries about aliens and the dark side of humanity, conspiracy theories, and it was all very different from like I usually just watch pet videos and like vlogs and just innocent vlogs and let's plays, so I don't know where all of that came from, and I was really baffled by it. And it was strange because it felt like from refresh to refresh, my content, like usually the YouTube feed would show me the same videos thinking that I would still, from creators that I knew that who had put out a new video or whatever, an old classic. Like, it would recommend stuff around creators that I liked. I was then finding that like there were a load of creators I didn't know that were turning up, and from refresh to refresh, my feed was just so different. I can't put that across enough. Like 1 minute it would be all about sort of aliens and cryptid creatures, and the next it would be all tarot videos, and it was exceedingly strange. At first I thought that basically my technology had been hacked. I still do believe that, by the way, because of the fact of not being able to see comments from people that I know that I've got from like looking at a friend's phone. But anyway, I thought that I was hacked, and I thought, well, maybe whoever's hacked me, whether that's a person or an AI or what, had basically been surveilling me, and they were putting information up like to respond to what was going on in my surroundings. But as time went on, that didn't work. It didn't fit with what was going on, because I was finding that I was, for example, thinking of a certain creator or a really niche 90s video game I'd never Googled. Like, we're talking about stuff here that I'd never Googled ever. So it really was bizarre to suddenly have, exactly what I've been thinking about right at the top of my feed. Or like, I'd be scrolling on social media and I'd be thinking about like my life problems, for example, and like then the first few posts on my general feed was stuff that almost responded to what I was thinking about. Exceedingly strange. And the most bizarre bit about it is that it is instantaneous. It is so quick. And sometimes I don't even know that I'm thinking about a particular thing, and then I get a response. And like, I know this sounds mad, I really do. And you're welcome to call me mad in the comments, Like, I'm kind of over it. Like, this is... If you had to live what I lived with, you would probably melt down, I imagine. Like, I have several times. Because, boy, is this a weird thing to live with. At first, I thought that it must all just be a coincidence. But then it started happening with greater frequency, and it was almost like I was getting to the point where, you know, you have like an internal monologue. I don't always have an internal monologue. Like, my thoughts, I don't even know how to describe how they work, but it's almost like I don't necessarily need to think about it in like words. I can just sort of piece concepts together. It's like having filing cabinets and like knowing what's in the file, but not actually reading it. I don't know. But I found that I was experiencing this more and more frequently, and I would, for the ease of like whoever it was who was sending messages, I would start using an internal monologue to try and like give them clearer like questions and whatever. And I soon found myself just having a permanent discourse with whoever, whatever controls my phone. And it sounds so mad. One thing I'll say about the whole thing was, even though I would get a response oftentimes to my question, often these responses were not necessarily the answer to what I was saying, but like talking around the subject. So like a video title, or the video itself, or like an email, or like social media post would like talk around the topic, but then the answer was always mixed into other kinds of content. So there would be other stuff filling out my feed, and I would have to kind of identify what information was relevant to the question that I'd asked, which is surprisingly easy. I wish I could show you it in action, but I can't show you my thoughts and how an algorithm like reflects my thoughts. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it. I never asked for this. But anyway, one of the other things about it is that this phenomena, which some people would call a synchronicity, which is an event or information relating to something in your head turning up in the real world in some way. So it's almost like you're getting a message that kind of synchronizes with your thoughts. But it is like Al. I should explain that because I don't have a name for the algorithm, and I don't know who's doing this to me, I've kind of ended up referring to whatever entity that is controlling my phone as Al, because it just, after a while, it's almost like the algorithm has its own personality, and I kind of wanted to reflect that, and it's easier than saying algorithm all the time. But anyway, I found that my algorithm has a very Jekyll and Hyde personality. So were times where it was kind of tormenting me. Like, it was picking on my weaknesses and my neuroses, and it was reflecting them back to me. So, for example, I came back from work one day feeling really demoralised, and some of the videos that came up were about, like, how to know you are failing at your job, and 6 things you should never do at your job, and, you know, really picking up on, like, deep fears that I had that I obviously wasn't communicating or displaying to anyone, but it's like the algorithm is in my head. I don't know how it's possible, but it really, there's some sort of witchcraft or like tech or something that is doing this, because if you knew the level of sophistication, you would, you'd believe me if you went through it yourself. You would believe me, because I never would have thought something like this was possible. But anyway, so a lot of the time it wasn't helpful. It wasn't positive for me. And, you know, it would terrorize me, I guess is the only way to put it. Like, imagine having all of your deepest insecurities and, like, the bits of yourself that you don't want to be displayed to the world being, like, reflected back up at you in the content that you're receiving. Not nice. But then there were other times where the algorithm was kind to me. Like, I would be scrolling through my phone while crying about something, and it would send me self-help information about, like, what I should do, and, like, sort of taking care of me. And it's weird. I mean, this ARG is meant to be horror themed, so the fact that it was using my fears against me made sense for a horror thing, but to have it feel as if Al actually cared about me, that was a lot stranger, and a lot, like, I appreciate it, but it was a lot stranger than the first, because you'd think exclusively horror if you're in this ARG. Apparently not. Anyway, I'm rambling. One of the things that I realised after a little bit of time was that it wasn't just, like, my feeds that were being impacted and being used to kind of give me information. It was everything on my phone and everything on my laptop. So, like, even phone notifications started to pop up at weird times in response to what I was thinking. And I realised then, I've realised it several times, but that's for another video. I realised then that my phone had become essentially my phone and technology, I should say, had become kind of the most sophisticated tool for delivering, like, information and, like, content and clues related to the ARG. Like, it fit exactly what I'd been told about living in a bubble and not being able to trust whether anything was true or false, which has some scary implications, because it means I don't know whether I can trust anything on any of my devices. Because if misinformation is part of this ARG, it could well be that I'm just being delivered misinformation. It would be easy for them to do. And again, would fit with the horrifying nature of everything. But at the same time, it also makes it much clearer why the bubble exists in the first place. Because my entire world and like waking experience of the world is like being in an ARG. Like, yeah, my life is an ARG. That's all it comes down to. I'll also say that this makes clear why I was given the direction by two to pray, because everything that I thought of was being reflected back to me in the form of content and clues via my phone and other technology. Once I had accepted this reality of mine, that technology was responding to my thoughts, that's when I started to try and piece together what the game wanted from me. And that essentially is what culminated in me like leaving the house at the early hours of the morning on multiple nights. I found that there were, again, it's really hard to describe quite how I come to the conclusions, like, because obviously I'm not just getting like a really clear kind of like sentence saying do this. Like I kind of have to decipher each of them. It's all clues, and the clues are literally time and context dependent. So like I couldn't tell you how I got these instructions. Like I can say that it was a convoluted way, like with like using emails, like multiple emails that like, you know, gave me a time, place, told me what to do, but yes, I felt that I was being compelled to go to a certain place in the early hours of the morning, and so I didn't know what would happen if I followed these instructions. I just, to be honest, if you were in my situation and your life has suddenly become like this weird technological fantasy, bizarre, mental illness looking life, like if you were in my situation, you would understand how much you desire to get some answers, like to speak to someone else who knows what you're going through and will like just help you. And I was hoping that if I followed these instructions, that's what would happen. I went on the first night, and I was told to be at the destination at 12 o'clock, midnight. And basically I turned up 5 minutes late, and my phone sort of reflected like, oh, too bad. So I failed in my mission that first day. The next day I went out again, this time to get there for like, I can't remember actually. All of the details of, like, if you want to know, like, I've got some videos up on my YouTube channel that are just titled with like the date and a time, and they're all videos of me walking in the dark, and those were filmed on these days when I felt I'd been told that I needed to go to a certain place. And I did that because at the time I was still not 100% sure that the whole clue, you know, my mind interacting with technology thing was true. And I felt that I needed to display to the game makers that I was following their instructions, because yeah, that there seemed to be a lot of pressure from them. and I didn't know quite how they were. Initially, I wondered whether they were just like watching my vlogs, and that was how they were interacting with me. But anyway, I wondered about whether I needed to go out again on the third night. Oh no, sorry, on the second night. I never told you the outcome of that. I turned up, bang on time, but for some reason, no one turned up, and I felt exceedingly stupid, because who the fuck follows like instructions you've derived via like your intuition to go to in the middle of the night for an ARG that doesn't necessarily exist? Like, yeah. But I felt stupid, and I decided that I wasn't going to do it again if I got instructed to, because nothing had happened. And to be honest, it felt like a troll. Like, because if I know anything about this game, anything they can do to make life harder for me, they'll do. Yeah. And so when I finally, I think it was like, the third night, after the first 2 nights, I decided I wasn't going to go anymore. But I did ask whether I needed to go out again on that third night, and immediately, as soon as I'd thought that, a notification for Domino's came to my phone saying, "It's cold outside, stay in and eat pizza." And I was like, great, cool, fine, awesome, right, that is definitive. And so I did. But then a couple of weeks later, they asked me to go again. Al asked me to go again, and this time, like, yeah, it felt like there was a lot of pressure for me to go, and I basically said, I'm not going to go because this is all just nonsense and you're just trolling me. Like, there is no a good outcome for this. Like, and the ARG then told me that basically I didn't have a choice, and I'll explain why in another video, because trust me, there's a whole other story there. It'll probably be the next video that I put out. But boy, I didn't have a choice, and eventually, I did it. I went out. I went out in my dressing gown with my coat over the top, because I was pissed off and just wanted to get it over and done with. And unfortunately, that was the night that the police were called on me, and they then flagged that there was potential mental health difficulties for where I was concerned, and that I needed to be assessed from a mental health perspective. And I very stupidly told the truth about everything that had been going on when those people arrived. I kind of wish I hadn't now, because it's landed me with like a mental health diagnosis. But I can't change I don't think I'd be given an opportunity to change the past, so I just had to live with it. Yes, so I think that was the plan, really. I think the plan was that I was never going to meet anyone. I never got to my destination, by the way. Like, I was intercepted by the police, so I don't know how they knew I was even there. But I never got to the location. And then the next day I had the assessment and was whisked straight into a mental hospital, so I didn't have any time to kind of process or whatever. But yes, so that explains those 3 very weird videos that I've got on the channel. Tempted to take them down, but ultimately I think I'll leave them there because it tells part of the story. But yeah, I'm certainly not following, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to trust that. How do I trust that Al's got my best intentions? Best interests even at heart? I don't. And that's what's so friggin' terrifying. But I have to kind of compartmentalize things a little bit, because if I start panicking about that, like, I'll end up in a panic attack again, and that's not actually going to be helpful. So I just have to trust that things will work out okay for me. I know I sound batshit crazy, but that is the reality of what I'm going through at the moment. And I will say that the antipsychotics that I was put on have made zero impact on me. And I'm just sort of trying to get through. However, I hope that by sharing my story, I'm doing justice to this. I'm not the first person who's been through this. I'm probably just the first person to actually talk about it, because apparently that is like my life goal now, whether I choose it to be or not. I wish I could tell you how little choice I actually do have in all of this, but yeah, let's not get depressing. I kind of feel lighter now for having shared all of this. I know that the reaction I'm going to get isn't going to be positive, and most people are just going to think, oh, this is someone who needs different, like, antipsychotic meds, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But hopefully there will be a few people out there who understand and want to help me through this, because there is so much going on. How is this possible, you're asking? Well, I don't really know, to be honest, because it almost feels supernatural how all of this works. Like, I don't know how technology can instantaneously react to my thoughts. And it might not even be technology, it might be that someone's monitoring my brain, and then there's like some technology like changing my feed. I don't know. I've got some theories, as you can tell. Like, I've thought about this a lot. But maybe other people will be able to come up with some better answers. I don't know. But I'll go into my theories in another video, because this one's already getting quite long. So I want to make it as snappy and short as possible, even though I've rambled to death today. But yes, I guess the only thing there is to do now is to sign off. So thank you so much for watching, and if you liked it, drop me a like, comment or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!